This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Wednesday, July 22nd. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, a drive-by mass shooting in Chicago outside a funeral home. Eyewitnesses describe the scene as horrific as police look for suspects. As President Donald Trump warns the coronavirus will get worse before it gets better, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are working to come up with a new relief bill. We'll take a look at what could be in it. But another piece of congressional legislation could pose a threat to one of America's strongest allies, Israel. We're going to explain what that amendment is and how it could hurt the Jewish state. And a revival on the shores of California. We're going to bring you a firsthand look at what God is doing as people are being baptized in the Pacific Ocean. All those stories and more are ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We begin this half hour with a mass shooting in Chicago last night. This time a shooting on the city's south side, injuring 14 people. Deputy Chief Eric Carter said a passing vehicle shot at mourners at a funeral home, hitting several people in their backs. The SUV later crashed and those inside ran off in several directions. Police are now asking for help from people in the area.
We are hoping that the community, if you have any video or anybody that knows anything, will help the detectives in their canvas and offer any information that can help solve this crime.
Our reports of a possible suspect in custody. Carter said all the victims were adults. Victims were taken to 5 area hospitals. Eyewitnesses described the scene as tragic, saying more women than men were shot.
They were shot.
Shot up everywhere, all over. Legs, stomach, back, all over the place. We thought it was a war out here. It's ridiculous over. It's ridiculous over here. All the shooting that's going on around here. It really needs to stop in this area.
Police counted 60 shell casings at the scene. The shooting comes as the Department of Homeland Security is planning to deploy dozens of federal agents to Chicago to deal with the increase in violent crime there. We turn now to Washington, where President Donald Trump is warning the coronavirus will get worse in the United States before it gets better. The president making that statement in his first White House virus briefing in 3 months. He also supported masks as a way to fight the virus and encouraged young people not to crowd into bars and spread the disease. The president's appearance comes as senators are feverishly trying to iron out details for another round of coronavirus relief. Here's CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy.
Kids, jobs, and healthcare will be the focus of what could be the last round of COVID-19 relief packages. This as Congress faces pressure to act fast.
This crisis is far from over.
With cases on the rise, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell announced more than $100 billion for schools in the next relief bill.
This majority is preparing legislation that will send $105 billion so that educators have the resources they need to safely reopen. That is more money than the House Democrats set aside for a similar fund.
Other potential elements include another round of $1,200 payments going directly to Americans, a 5-year liability shield for COVID-19 related lawsuits, money for targeted virus testing and tracing, and the payroll tax cut.
The payroll tax in particular goes to some of our hardest working Americans. The people that it benefits, if you look at the tax structure, are middle income and low income workers.
Democrats want the additional $600 per week in unemployment benefits to continue rather than expiring at the end of July.
They're thinking about doing 70% of the amount. The amount would be the same, but doing it in a little bit smaller initial amounts so that people are going to want to go back to work.
We've said the number one issue is we have to fix the technical fix on enhanced unemployment. We're going to make sure that we don't pay people more money to stay home than go to work.
Our country faces the greatest health threat in 100 years.
In a letter to Senate Democrats, Minority Leader Charles Schumer wrote, "Unfortunately, by all accounts, the Senate Republicans are drafting legislation that comes up short in a number of vital areas, such as extending unemployment benefits or funding for rental assistance, hazard premium pay for frontline workers, or investing in communities of color being ravaged by the virus, and many other necessary provisions."
The financial markets are counting on it. I would say unemployed and employed Americans are counting on it. And I think members of Congress who mostly want to be returning to their jobs on Capitol Hill after this election are mindful that this would pretty much be a big fail if they don't pass the legislation. I think that's something that members of both parties can agree on.
Mnuchin says they are committed to getting a COVID-19 relief bill done by the end of the month. By that count, lawmakers have until next week to try and hash out a deal. Ben Kennedy, CBN News.
America has ordered China to close its consulate in Houston. The government said the closing was to protect American intellectual property and Americans' private information. It did not provide any details. A Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson condemned the action, calling it an unprecedented escalation. The Justice Department is raising new accusations of a Chinese hacking operation reaching the United States and around the world, this time targeting important research into the coronavirus vaccine. CBN's national security correspondent Eric Phillips brings us the story.
A grand jury returned an 11-count indictment against the two men. Their overall activity was concerning, but major red flags went up when the investigation revealed attempts to steal intellectual property regarding COVID vaccine development. The two men named Li and Dong are now among the FBI's most wanted. Authorities say the Chinese residents, trained in computer applications technologies, have hacked hundreds of private and government systems worldwide,
including COVID-19 related treatment, testing, and vaccines.
Officials rattled off case after case where they say the men had attempted to breach companies involved in vaccine development.
They were doing reconnaissance in a Massachusetts firm involved in COVID vaccine research. Likewise, they did the same for a Maryland firm involved in biotech research.
Officials say the hacking is twofold: for the men's own financial benefit and to help the Chinese Communist Party. The investigation revealing two important trends.
China is using cyber intrusions as part of its rob, replicate, and replace strategy to technological development. China is providing a safe haven for criminal hackers who, as in this case, are hacking in part for their own personal gain, but willing to help the state.
The hacking was first discovered on Department of Energy computers in Washington state. Authorities say the investigation took such a long time because the men covered their steps well. After discovering hundreds of millions of dollars stolen in trade secrets and intellectual property, the FBI sent a strong message.
We're bringing these charges today to put the Chinese leaders directing these cyber attacks on notice. There are serious consequences and risks for stealing our technological and our intellectual property.
If the men were to be convicted on all charges, it could mean a sentence of more than 50 years behind bars. And I should mention that authorities don't believe the men were successful at obtaining any COVID research secrets, although they do believe they were definitely after them. Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Planned Parenthood of Greater New York is taking the name of the founder of the organization, Margaret Sanger, off its clinic in Manhattan because of her supporting the eugenics movement. That comes after more than 350 current and former staffers called Sanger, quote, a racist white woman. While pro-life leaders have been arguing the organization was built on racial eugenics, the idea that humanity can be improved by selective breeding and ideology can be harmful to the disabled, the poor, and people of color. Planned Parenthood has long disputed charges that Sanger was a racist, but now Planned Parenthood appears to be admitting to Sanger's record. The hottest weather of the summer is gripping many parts of the country. High heat and humidity have made it feel more than 100 degrees in several cities along the East Coast. Philadelphia's heat index reached 105, while Washington, D.C. recently felt like 108, and in New Jersey, 110. Sweltering heat has tourists in Virginia Beach battling the sun and scorching sand as part of the week-long heat wave. Experts warn the use of air conditioning could help COVID-19 spread.
It's blowing the virus in a specific pattern, and you're downwind of somebody indoors, then it could blow it farther than 6 feet.
Experts also are urging people to replace existing air conditioning filters with a compatible one that removes most particles. Coming up, it is just an amendment to a defense spending bill here in the United States, but it could pose a threat to the safety of Israel. We're going to explain how when we come back.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
More than a dozen senators are supporting an amendment quietly added to this year's defense bill. It sounds like no big deal, but some say it is a move that could endanger Israel now and in the future. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Israel's Iron Dome anti-missile system is literally a lifesaver against terror attacks by groups like Hamas or Hezbollah. This amendment, introduced by Senate Democrat Chris Van Hollen, could conceivably prevent the deployment of this joint U.S.-Israel defense system to protect areas like the West Bank or Jordan Valley. The amendment states no U.S. funds may support the deployment of United States defense articles, services, or training to territories in the West Bank unilaterally annexed by Israel after July 1st, 2020, or to facilitate the unilateral annexation of such territories.
The Van Hollen Amendment is an example of American legislators who cut off their nose to spite their own face, namely the face of America's own interest.
Israel's former congressional liaison, Ambassador Yoram Ettinger, argues this move could have a negative impact beyond the West Bank, while also undermining Israel and the U.S.
Such a proposal reflects a total disconnect by those senators from Middle East reality. When Israel and Jordan concluded a peace treaty in October of 1994, the top Jordanian military commanders, they told the Israeli colleagues a Palestinian state west of the Jordan River would doom the pro-American Hashemite regime east of the Jordan River.
Others argue the amendment contradicts President Obama's 2016 Memorandum of Understanding between the U.S. and Israel. That allowed Israel to defend itself by itself. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had hoped to announce annexation of 30% of Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, on July 1st. But a combination of White House indecision and a rebound of COVID-19 has delayed that decision. Annexation is a proposal opposed by senators like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
Those American senators would do well for their own American interests. Israel in the West Bank has become a very potent element of deterrence in face of Iran's ayatollahs.
Attinger doesn't view the Van Hollen Amendment as an anomaly. On the contrary, he sees it as more evidence of an ideological shift in America.
Certainly, that transformation of the American society has also afflicted Capitol Hill as well, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The secret, so to speak, of the very unique bond between the U.S. and Israel has rested on the Judeo-Christian roots of both the U.S. and Israel. A departure from Judeo-Christian roots, a departure by America from those roots would also mean a departure from very special U.S.-Israel relations, which would not bode well for either the U.S. or Israel.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, a familiar face stars alongside Tom Hanks in the new World War II film Greyhound. You're going to meet the young man with an incredible career and an amazing faith story. We're sitting down with Grayson Russell next.
Before you marry is a bad idea. Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
It's like a great attraction. Let's start to chain reaction. Pulling on more satisfaction. I love the way this joy makes me move. Yeah, I got that. I dance around because I know it. I move around because I got it. Joy's in the heart.
Greyhound is the new Tom Hanks film. He's written and he stars in the World War II dramatic action movie inspired by real-life events. Playing alongside Hanks is a young Christian actor, Grayson Russell. He is just about to graduate college, but he's already enjoyed a long film career.
Huffduff reports a German transmission bearing 087 degrees, range 15 to 20 miles.
Greyhound, how did you come to the film, and what do you think of the story now that people are about to see it?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was 19 when we filmed it, and I'm just turned 22 a couple months ago. So it's been a long time coming. I remember literally falling to the ground in my grandparents' bedroom. I had just come home from college for Valentine's Day weekend, and I got a call that Friday saying, "Hey, we need you on Tuesday to be in Baton Rouge to begin boot camp for the Navy and Marines for Greyhound."
Wow.
And, oh, by the way, you'll be working with Tom Hanks for 2 months. So I just remember I just on my knees, just like, oh my God, thank you so much.
Air escort to Greyhound.
the next 5 days. Safe travels to England. How many crossings does this make?
This was my first.
What did you think of the story in that time in history?
I've always been a history buff, period, more or less regardless of the period. Right before I auditioned for Greyhound, one of my dear friends passed away. He was 99, served in the Pacific and the Navy. So for me, it was not so much a historical piece as it was a tribute to one of my best friends.
We have hits directly on the convoy.
I was watching an interview that Tom did for a separate deal at how similar the times are now, where we're sitting here and going, okay, we don't really know when this COVID stuff is going to end. We're not entirely sure how we're going to navigate it, but we're all in this together to an extent, to this purpose, to get to the end of it. No different than these sailors sitting on this boat in the middle of nowhere going, okay, we have to figure out a way to get the things that Europe needs to survive.
Right.
We got to get it there. Hell or high water. And we get a whole lot of both. We get 90 minutes of both with Greyhound.
Tell us about your character. You play a signalman?
Yes, sir. So I play a signalman second class, and my job was to keep lines of communication open between this great big convoy while allowing us to stay radio silent so that the Nazis couldn't hear us.
Here they come.
Before I let you go, I want to talk more about you and your career personally. I forgot the year, but a critical year in terms of you being on the set of, it wasn't called Talladega Nights at that time.
Texas Ranger, how about you?
Well, the teacher asked me what was the capital of North Carolina. I said Washington, D.C.
Bingo.
Talladega Nights was something that I never intended to be an actor at all. Where I'm from is 9,000 people. My mom's an accountant. My dad does construction work. I wanted to be George Strait, ride bulls, and draw pictures. That's what I wanted to do. A lot of people don't realize that I got saved while filming Talladega Nights, and as a 7-year-old that I, brand new, just got saved. I wasn't comfortable with it. Neither was my family. We're going, okay, we know we're supposed to be here because this is too crazy of a situation to not be of God. Mm-hmm. How do we handle this? And I very vividly remember going up to Adam McKay. And I remember going up to him and saying, Mr. Adam, do we really have to say all this? And he sat me up and looked me in the eyes and said, you never have to do anything that you're not comfortable with.
Let me run through some other films you've been in real quick and just get your reaction. Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
What do you want to do, Frank Heffley? How about Twister? I'm not really that much of a Twister guy. Candy!
I was in middle school. Middle school in a public school is hard enough when you're not in the middle of a franchise called Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And it's even harder when you're playing the strangest kid in the film.
I'll save that for later.
Space Warriors.
I'm gonna die. Piece of cake.
What if I hurl? Keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. I think I am gonna hurl.
That was a blast. That was the only film I've actually done at home, more or less. I'm from Alabama. We filmed at the Huntsville Space and Rocket Center.
Mother's Day?
Mother's Day. I got my senior year of high school. It's the first week of my senior year of high school. We go in, and I remember on the first day, here we are with Gary Marshall, who is responsible for discovering Julia Roberts, Robin Williams. He created Happy Days. He created Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley. And then on the back end, it being his last film before he passed away, that was an honor.
And you can catch Grayson in Greyhound. It's streaming right now on Apple TV+. And for more uplifting entertainment, be sure to check out Studio 5. You can do so this evening as we take an extensive look at the film All Saints. You can catch Studio 5 on the CBN News Channel beginning at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Coming up, a revival movement as people are receiving salvation on the shores of Huntington Beach, California. We've got that story coming up next.
On the Home Front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
A revival is taking place on the shores of Huntington Beach, California, where hundreds of people are gathering to worship, pray, and receive salvation. Saturate OC began July 3rd. The OC, by the way, stands for Orange County. The idea for the Seaside Evangelistic Movement started in 2016, when organizers Parker and Jesse Green had a vision of thousands of people being baptized along the Huntington Beach Pier. In a video shared on Twitter July 11th, Bethel Music's Sean Foyt talked about what's happening.
Hey guys, I'm here in Huntington Beach in Orange County, California. We just had an amazing time of worship. You can see all these crazy people behind us. We gathered together for worship, and the gospel was preached with power. People stood up to give their lives to Jesus, and now we're here baptizing people in the Pacific Ocean.
Saturate OC is extended to August 7th. Organizers expect some 50,000 salvations. And of course, you can find more about this story at cbnnews.com. Time now for your Wednesday word. And today's word is actually two. Stay high, guard your thoughts, and think only on things that are authentic and real, honorable and admirable, beautiful and respectful, pure and holy, merciful and kind. That guide is pulled directly from the pages of Scripture. Follow it and stay high. With that word, make this a wonderful Wednesday. That will do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you can find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us at the address right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Goodbye and God bless.